start the total surrender?
Yes.
Yeah. So, if Archana has got the text, she can start. It's a very small para.
Yes, Rangarajan.
Yeah.
The total surrender, then, of all our actions to a supreme and universal will, an unconditioned and standardless surrender of all works to the government of something eternal within us, which will replace the ordinary working of the ego nature, is the way and end of Karma Yoga. But what is this divine supreme will, and how can it be recognized by our deluded instruments and our blind present intelligence?
Yeah.
A very practical question.
It's a very small para. So, we are in the chapter, the supreme will. You remember, before that, the 4 standards of conduct. First of all, the egoistic, which is valid at that level, but not valid at the other levels. Then there is a social standard, which is also valid, but it is not moral. And the third is the moral. And fourth is no standards at all. Okay. You depend entirely on the divine, and the divine is not at all conditioned by human values. Okay, so this is what he's saying. So, but there is a yet higher attainment. Okay, there is an infinity, anantya, but in which even this last limitation is exceeded, the moral limitation. Because the nature is utterly fulfilled and its boundaries vanish. The boundaries at the physical level, the nature is your body, mind, life, and obviously they are all limited. But when you go to the higher level, okay, the earlier one, just 1 second. In the fulfillment of the integral yoga. So he says even that, okay, there is the integral yoga ends with the supramental consciousness, but now he is saying there is an even higher attainment, even higher than that. So the total surrender then of all our actions to a supreme and universal will, and unconditioned and standardless surrender of all works. Now the word unconditioned and standardless. The 4 levels at the lower level, the 4th you can say is not standard. Standard. The 4th one is standardless. You depend entirely on the divine will, and the divine will can tell you to do things which you may feel contradicted your spiritual life. Okay. So, best example, Arjuna is being asked to wage war and kill his opponents. Okay, so not possible at the normal level. And this is what is happening now in the Gaza Strip. All the countries which were supporting Israel are now saying to Israel, control yourself. There are conditions. Okay? So even what is moral can be, they can change their stance also. But now in the highest levels, they are saying, even that standardless surrender, okay, that's absolutely beyond the total surrender. The total surrender, okay, total surrender, then of all our actions to a supreme and universal will, an unconditioned and standardless surrender of all works to the government of something eternal within us, which will replace the ordinary workings of ego nature, is the way and end of Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga. The surrender comes in the Karma Yoga. But what is this divine supreme will, and how can it be recognized by our deluded instruments, body, life and mind, okay? And our blind prisoned intelligence. Okay? So, prisoned, very interesting word. Normally we say imprisoned, but they are saying prison. So in other words, he is using the word prison as a verb. Okay, so we'll have to check that to see whether it can be used as a word. He has got the power to do whatever he wants because he loves the language. Okay, so that is it. So now, just 1 second. Yeah, so it's a very small. Just 1 second. So the para is very small, but my my summary is a little longer than the para. Okay, so I'm just because I'm recapitulating. I'll just read the summary. Okay, so in level 1 of the ignorance and multiplicity, man is number 1 deluded into thinking he is the body, life, and mind. This is the first thing in the ignorance of level 1. Secondly, completely oblivious. He doesn't know at all of the real individual, which is the psychic or the self. He's completely ignorant of both. Third, driven by nature as slave. These are the characteristics of the level 1. Driven by nature as a slave, but thinks he is the doer of all works. And he is also, next one is governed by ego. So these are all the, I'm recapitulating. It is very useful. When you are in your normal level 1 consciousness, you think you are the body, mind, and life. Secondly, you don't know your self and psyche at all. You're completely ignorant of that. Third, driven by nature as a slave, and you don't know that you are a slave of nature, but nature is using you as a slave. Okay? And you think that you are doing all the works, which is the ego, which is false. Thirdly, you are governed by the ego. Then, next is, but Karma Yoga ends in the negation of all these states of consciousness. He realizes, the Karma Yogin realizes, number 1, his true being, the self, loses identity with body, mind, life. Okay? Just 1 second. But Karma Yoga, the Karma, he realizes his own true being, which is the self. Secondly, he loses identity with body, mind, life. In fact, body, mind, life is seen to him to be something else outside him. Okay. Then he knows his self to be the individual, yet universal being or Purusha. This also he knows that his individual self is also the universal self. Thirdly, he replaces government of ego by the greater eternal reality, which is the spiritual or superman. Fourthly, he is motivated by the divine will and not by his small personal will. Now the Swami is asking the question, but how to recognize this greater divine will with our outer nature of body, mind, life? How to know that? That's what he's saying. Now he'll go to the, just 1 second. I have to make correction. GR. Yeah. Okay. So there is a question that is asking. That's fine, but how do I know? I don't know who the divine is. I don't know anything. It's only my own limited ideas. So now we will start answering one by one in gradations, obviously. So we read the next one. Ordinarily, we conceive of ourselves.
Shall I read?
Go ahead.
Ordinarily, we conceive of ourselves as a separate I in the universe that governs a separate body and mental and moral nature, chooses in full liberty its own self-determined actions, and is independent and therefore sole master of its works and responsible. It is not easy for the ordinary mind, the mind that has not thought nor looked deeply into its own constitution and and constituents.
Yeah.
It is difficult even for minds that have thought but have no spiritual vision and experience to imagine how there can be anything else in us truer, deeper, and more powerful then this apparent I and its empire. But the first step towards self-knowledge, as towards the true knowledge of phenomena, is to get behind the apparent truth of things and find the real but masked, essential, and dynamic truth which their appearances cover.
Again, another small para, very small para. And he is saying, he is giving you the first step. You have to go beyond the appearances. You have to, just like science also is doing that. Science first is dealing only with the appearances, but then slowly it realizes that there are hidden truths behind the appearances. The first thing, very clear example of this is, he sees the sun rising and he thinks that the sun is going around the earth. This is what happened in Europe 100 years ago. They, not 100, 200, 300 years ago. Then, but in India it was not like that. We knew very well that the earth is round and we are not the center of the universe. That was known. But in Europe it was not known. Remember Galileo and Tycho Brahe and all those cases where they thought that the sun is going around the earth. But then science comes in and changes all that. It goes behind and says what is apparent. What is apparent is the sun rising, but that's not the truth. The truth is the opposite. So what science is doing, you have to do also in the yogic field. Go behind the appearances. That's what Sadhu is saying. So here also, I will just read out the summary. The summary is not a big one. Okay, so yeah. Man's or normal conception of himself is that he is a separate, independent being with clearly separate body, vital and mind, and a moral nature. He thinks he is free and can do whatever he wants to. He can determine his actions and his thoughts according to his own free will and also become what he wants to be. He is fully free and he is the sole doer and master of his own actions, emotions and thoughts. This is what he thinks. Okay? But this largely is an illusion and it is not easy for him to see that the truth is quite other than what he imagines. He neither sees nor understands that a greater self, a true, deeper, more powerful being exists far beyond the ego and the small world. Unless he has spiritual experience and vision, he can never know this truth, even if he mentally acknowledges about it. Okay? But no self-knowledge is possible unless he goes within and above, deeper and higher, beyond the appearance of surface seemings. Okay? He has to discover his real but hidden, veiled, essential, dynamic truth within himself, hidden from his senses and physical sight. So this is what he's saying in the small part. Okay, so just 1 second. Now there is there are two interesting words, so we'll have to look at that. Constitution and constituents. What does it mean? Okay. Otherwise, the para is very simple. Ordinarily, I am reading each sentence. Ordinarily, we conceive of ourselves as a separate I in the universe that governs a separate body and mental and moral nature. Okay. Very clear. We all know that we are separate from the universe. I am separate from everybody else and I am also separate from the world. Okay. But this is an illusion because you are really connected. Okay. Governs a separate body and mental and moral nature, chooses in full liberty. He thinks, okay, conceive that he chooses in full liberty his own self-determined actions and is independent and therefore sole master of his works. This is very common when someone asks others to do his bidding. Okay, you say, no, I'll do it in my own way. Okay, this is very common because you think that you have the full liberty to do that. In some areas, you don't have the full liberty. For instance, in the army, you have to obey the commander. You can't have any liberty. But in normal life, you think that you have the liberty to do that. In any organization also, you have some liberty, but not the full liberty. The, the rules laid down by the management, you have to follow that. If you don't want to follow, you are free to leave, but you have to follow. But here, normally in ordinary life, you think that you have the full liberty to do what you want. And he is independent and therefore sole master of his works and responsible. It is not easy for the ordinary mind, the mind that has not thought or looked deeply into its own constitution and constituents. So now that's interesting. What is constitution and what is constituents? Constitution is your own nature, the full nature. Okay? Nature in total, the overall look. And constituents, the members of your being, your body, your mind, and your life. But not only that, there are many other constituents. There is an inner life, inner mind, inner vital. There is your self, there is your psychic being. There are so many things. Okay, so these are only constituents. The contents of your nature is the constituents. Constitution is your total nature, up and down, both. Okay. It is difficult even for minds that have thought but have no spiritual vision and experience. All of us have, we know, okay, those who are studying Lamprimine and studying synthesis and studying cerebral, even others, they know that there is a psychic being which is the true self. They know that there is a self which is your true being. But it's a mental knowledge. It's not enough. Okay? It's difficult even for minds that have thought but have no spiritual vision and experience to imagine how there can be anything else in us truer, deeper, and more powerful than this apparent I and its empire. The empire of the I is the physical world and your own being, body, mind, life. But that very first step towards self-knowledge, as towards the true knowledge of phenomena, is to get behind the apparent truth of things and find the real but masked, essential and dynamic truth which their appearances cover. The appearances are the physical forms. Okay? Now, note also he is saying knowledge of phenomena. Okay? That's he is referring to science. But the very first step towards self-knowledge, as towards the true knowledge of phenomena, exactly what science is doing, going beyond the apparent phenomena to get at the. First you think that your thoughts are your own, but then you realize later on that there are thoughts coming into you. So you have to go beyond the knowledge of phenomena. And then you will come to the special law. That's what yoga is all about. But this real self is masked, essential, and dynamic truth. So all small paras. Now we go to the next one. This ego or I. So Kiran can read if she has a text. Then Sunti will read last.
Yes, Rangada.
Go ahead, read. This ego or I.
This ego or I is not a lasting truth, but much less our essential part. It is only a formation of nature, a mental form of thought, centralization in the perceiving and discriminating mind, a vital form of the centralization of feeling and sensation in our body, in our parts of life, a form of physical conscious reception, centralizing substance and function of substance in our bodies. All that we internally are is not ego, but consciousness, soul, or spirit. All that we externally and superficially are and do is not ego, but nature. An executive cosmic force shapes us and dictates through our temperament and environment and mentality, so shaped through our individualized formulation of the cosmic energies, our actions and their results. Truly, we do not think, will, we do not think, will or act, but thoughts occur in us, will occurs in us, impulse and act occur in us. Our ego sense gathers around itself, refers to itself all this flow of natural activities. It is cosmic force, it is nature that forms the thought, imposes the will, imparts the impulse. Our body, mind, and ego are a wave of that sea of force in action and do not govern it, by it are governed and directed. The sadhak in his progress towards truth and self knowledge must come to a point where the soul opens its eyes of vision and recognizes this truth of ego and this truth of works. He gives us the idea of a mental, vital, physical I that acts or governs our action. He recognizes that Prakriti, force of cosmic nature, following her fixed modes, is the one and only worker in him and in all things and creatures.
Like a bigger para, same thing. Here also, I'll quickly read the summary. Okay, then we go into the text. This ego or I, okay, the sense of I-ness, that's the ego. It's a formation of nature, just like your body is a formation of nature, exactly in the same way. This ego is, there's no ego above, only in the lower, the level 1, there's the ego. But as you keep going up, the ego disappears because nature is not there. You become Triguna-tita. And when you become Triguna-tita in level 2, then ego cannot be there because ego is a form of nature. And you have gone beyond nature. What is nature? Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. So you have gone beyond that, so there cannot be any ego also. This ego or I is only a superficial creation of nature. Just 1 second. Sometimes I have to make corrections. Creation, of nature without any essential reality. Okay, it has a practical reality, but it's not essential. It disappears. That's why. If essentially it is there, it will survive. Okay? And is subject to disappearance when the true individuality is realized, which is the self or the psychic being. The ego is useful, almost necessary for self-development and centralization of the various parts of our outer being. Okay? It is dissolved and discarded when no longer needed, like a scaffolding. The scaffolding is essential to build the building, but as soon as it's over, you remove it. Ego also is exactly like that. You have to build your character. You have to build your capacities of body, life, and mind. And once that is done, the ego can disappear. Okay? This ego correlates and coordinates the diverse parts of our outer nature. Outer nature, body, mind, life. If ego is not there in the normal man, he will be like a leaf in the wind. Okay? He'll be pushed about and he will not even be aware of his own existence. But those who have an ego, they are fully conscious. Developed human beings have an ego, okay? Usually. And that ego means you are fully conscious of your own existence as separate from the rest of the world. The ego correlates and coordinates the diverse parts of the outer nature. Outer nature is your body, mind, life. If the ego is not there, the continuity of existence also in yourself may not be very easy. Okay? So, what man truly is not external body, life, and mind, but the inner being consisting of consciousness, soul, or spirit, psychic, or self. The outer being of body, life, and mind is an individual construction of universal nature. Universal matter is making your body, universal life principle is making your vital, your individual vital, and your individual mind also is made by universal mind. Okay, just like the sea and the wave. The wave is an individual formation of the universal sea. Exactly in the same way, this is what's happening. This outer being of body, life, and mind is an individual construction of universal nature. Prakriti, okay, Prakriti is universal nature that motivates, drives, and governs the outer nature but according to each individual form or character. Okay? Again, we come back to the idea of the caste system. If you are, universe is manipulating you. Okay? But if you are a Brahmin, it will manipulate you according to your nature. If you are a Vaishya, it will manipulate you according to your character. Exactly in the same. So, man does not think, thought occurs in him. So clear. The thought is entering and you think that you are thinking. Man does not act. He is made to move like a puppet by a string puller. Okay. There is also another thing, but we don't think so. Okay. We think that I am doing all these things. He is made to move just once a day. Yeah. Like a puppet by a string puller. And the string puller is who? Universal nature. Man is a wave in the universal ocean. Again, I have got correction. Just 1 second. In the universal ocean. Oh. Just 1 second. C-E-A. In the universal ocean of matter, prana, and thought. The wave cannot govern the sea. It is a sea that governs all natures, creatures, objects, and events. We always think that we can manipulate the circumstances in the physical world. You think about this, really like that. You feel that you can manipulate people, that you can manipulate the circumstances, change the circumstances. You think like that. Everybody thinks like that. But actually, it is not so at all. For instance, the government thinks that it can change the conditions in the physical world. But it is nature which is doing that according to its own. Of course, the nature's intention and your intention may coincide. And that will give even more credit to your belief that you are doing everything. Okay. Very often it is like that. Okay, so this is what Sundari says. The sadhaka, I am continuing the summary. The sadhaka must at some point experience this truth of the ego's shallow nature. He must realize that he is not the doer, but the universal nature is the executrix of all action in the universe. Okay? So this is what he is saying. This is a summary of what we did just now. I go back to the beginning of the paragraph. This ego or self. This ego or I, and he is putting the I in double quotes, because there is no such thing. What you think is the I, there is no such thing. That's why he is putting in double quotes. Is not a lasting truth, much less our essential part. The essential part is your psyche and your self. It is only a formation of nature, and every formation of nature is bound to be born and to die. Okay. So if it is dying, then it cannot be the essence, and if it is dying, it cannot be the truth also. Okay. So therefore, just like your body, your vital and your mind. The body's formation is very clear, but exactly the same thing is true also of the vital and the mind. They are all formations which dissolve after death. A mental form of thought centralization in the perceiving and discriminating mind. The perceiving mind is the manas, and the discriminating mind is your pure mind, logic. A vital form of the centralization of feeling and sensation. He is talking about the ego effect in the mind, the vital, and even the body. Okay? Even the body is made to work. Very clear, because the body is working according to its own laws. Your blood pressure, your kidney, your functioning, your stomach, digestion, everything is not your will at all. But what is obvious at the body level is also true of the vital and the mind. But we think that we are thinking, we are emoting, and we think that we are having emotions. Not at all. Okay, so it's not like that. That's what he said. It becomes very clear in the body that we have no, you can exercise some amount of will on your body, but that also requires development. There are people who can control uh, their pulse, and they're not very developed people. Ordinary people also can control your pulse. Okay? You can come down quite a lot. Even the breathing can be suspended in Hatha Yoga. So anyway, mostly the body is working on its own, not your will. All that we internally are is not the ego. Now he's telling you in 4 or 5 sentences how the ego is a formation of nature and not true. All that we internally are is not ego, but consciousness, soul or spirit. Internally, not externally. Externally, the body is a formation of nature. But consciousness, soul and spirit. All that we externally and superficially are and do is not ego, but nature. An executive cosmic force shapes us. Note the word executive. This cosmic force is executing all action in the physical world. It is making the sun to shine. It is making the river flow down to the ocean. It is doing all this. There is the executive cosmic force shapes us and dictates through our temperament and environment and mentality, so shaped through our individualized formulation of the cosmic energies. The cosmic energy is coming and individualizing itself in the human being. This is exactly, usually we can explain this in this way, that each one of us is a vessel. And you may be, one will be a colored vessel and one will be a tall vessel and another will be a flat and round and color will be different. So when the waters, the energies of the universe are pouring into you, it will take that form. It will take the form and color of your own nature. So that's how it is. Okay. When we speak of people's nature, oh, he's selfish, oh, he's generous, oh, he's angry. These are all only nature which is taking the shape of your individual formation. Form the thought, imposes the will. Note the word imposes the will. Even the will is imposed on you. It's not your will. Imparts the impulse. Even the body actions are all prompted by the nature only. Our body, mind and ego are a wave of that sea of force in action. So that's why the example of the sea and the wave, it becomes very clear. The wave is thinking, when you have an ego, the wave is thinking that I can do whatever I want, forgetting that it's part of the sea. Okay, so that's what it is. Our body, mind and ego are a wave of that sea of force in action, and do not govern it. We don't govern it, but by it are governed. Nature is governing us. We do not govern nature. And directed. Not only governed, but directed also. Each individual action is dictated by the universal nature. The sadhaka, in his progress towards truth and self-knowledge, must come to a point where the soul opens its eyes of vision and recognizes this truth of ego and this truth of works. This is what happens in Karma Yoga or other things also. When you go to the self, this is the realization that you have, that you are not the doer, but the doer is universal nature. That gives you a little bit of humility, and the ego is not there at the higher level. Level 2, there is no ego. That's why you can think of yourself as only the witness. You are not the doer, you are the witness. He gives up the idea of the mental, vital, physical I that acts and governs action. He gives up the idea. He recognizes that Prakriti, force of cosmic nature, following her fixed modes, is the one and only worker in him and in all things and creatures. Now, one thing, force of cosmic nature, following her fixed modes. What is that? Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Nature is made of three modes, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. So we'll act only according to these three modes and nothing else. Okay? Because that's what she is built, she is made of. Nature is made of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. He is the one and only worker in him, and all things are creatures. So nature is the only one. There is no freedom at all in the lower level of consciousness. We are at 8:36, so we have got 4 minutes more. We can read one more paragraph. But what has fixed the modes of nature? So now he is coming to what of nature. Sunki, can you read the last paragraph?
Yes, I will read.
Go ahead. But what has fixed the modes of nature?
The modes of nature, or but what has fixed the mode of nature, or who has originated and governs the movements of force? There is a consciousness or a conscient. Behind that is the Lord, witness, knower, enjoyer, upholder, and source of sanction for her works. This consciousness is the soul or Purusha. Prakriti shapes the action in us. Purusha in her or behind her witnesses, assents, bears, and upholds it. Prakriti forms the thought in our minds. Purusha in her or behind her knows the thought and the truth in it. Prakriti determines the results of the action. Purusha in her or behind her enjoys or suffers the consequence. Prakriti forms the mind and body, labors over them, develops them. Purusha upholds the formation and evolution and sanctions each step of her works. Prakriti applies the will force which works in things and men. Purusha sets that will force to work by his vision of that which should be done. This Purusha is not the surface ego, but silent self, a source of power, an originator and receiver of knowledge behind the ego. Our mental eye is only a false reflection of this self, this power, this knowledge. This Purusha or supporting consciousness is therefore the cause, recipient, and support of all nature's works. But he is not himself the doer. Prakriti, nature, force, in front, and Shakti, conscious force, soul force, behind her. For these two are the inner and outer faces of the universal mother, account for all that is done in the universe. The universal mother, Prakriti Shakti, is the one and only worker.
This whole para is explaining consciousness and force. Okay? Purusha and Prakriti. So, spirit and nature can all be very interchangeable words. So, now this consciousness is a very interesting Purusha. Consciousness is there everywhere from the highest level to the lowest level. There is Purusha. Purusha is the consciousness. So, Purusha, when it is at the highest level, it is the Ishvara. Okay? It's the consciousness of the Ishvara. As it is coming down, it becomes the consciousness of the overmind, it becomes the consciousness of the, it goes on reducing its capacity on, darkening its own power. Okay? Then it goes on, it comes down, and when it comes down into the mind, it becomes a mental Purusha. It's a consciousness in the mind. Then when it comes down to the vital, there is a vital Purusha, yeah? Pranamaya Purusha. Then when it comes down to the body also has a consciousness. Now, we have seen that many times. The consciousness is something that is, there is an intention and a purpose in all the actions of the physical body. So that also is the physical Purusha. So this idea you must have. Don't think that Purusha is only consciousness at level 2. Okay? It's consciousness is even at the level, at the lowest levels. Okay? There is Purusha also in the inconscient, but it is hidden. The consciousness is hidden there. Then there is also Prakriti, and Prakriti is also there at all the levels. At the lowest level, Prakriti is the queen. She is the one who determines everything. At the higher level, in level 2, she has no power. She just keeps quiet. She falls asleep, okay, or inactive. That's the self. Experience of the self. When you go to the third level, the supramental level, there consciousness and force are partners. They are hand in hand and they work together. You can't say that Purusha is superior to Prakriti. You can't say that because they are equal to each other. This is the Ardhanarishwara image of the Indian iconography. Purusha and Prakriti are equal partners at the highest level. And as they keep coming down, they become separate. Okay? That's what he's saying in this paragraph. So we have to stop here now, 8:41. So next time we have to go to Purusha Prakriti consciousness source. Sunki has to make a note.
Yes, I'll make a note.
Nature is the only worker at the lower level. As you keep going higher and higher, there is an interesting, he has given the Gita's, we'll discuss that. Okay? Lord, witness, knower, enjoyer, upholder, and source of sanction. All these are words used in the Gita. And we'll get the corresponding references when we come to that. I think we better redo this paragraph. What has fixed the modes of nature, we'll redo it. Okay?
Okay, I'll make a note like that.
200, page 214. And okay. Au revoir, everybody.
Thank you, Rankada. Thank you,
Thank you,
Rankada.
Ankada.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day, Ankada.
Thank you. Same to you.